The Mariners had a top 5 pitching staff in baseball last year, and they'll continue to do so moving forward. Now it's time for the Mariners offense to step up and match what their pitching has done and will do in the future. You add Juan Soto and to this lineup, and this is what it would look like for me. It would be the Seattle Mariners this offseason are needing to bring in one, potentially two impact bats into their lineup. And what I mean by impact bat is a hitter that opposing pitchers do not want to face in any situation. Bottom of the ninth, 2 outs. If there's a base open on first base, you want the opposing team to have to intentionally walk the guy at the plate because his at-bat is going to likely change the outcome of this game. During the MLB offseason, there's 2 ways to add impact to your lineup. 1 is via free agency, and 2 is via the trade market. In the free agent market this offseason, we all know that the #1 free agent available is Shohei Ohtani. And myself being an optimist, the Mariners' chance at signing Shohei this offseason, I would say, is around 30%. And in this free agent market, if you're looking to sign an impact bat, beyond Shohei Ohtani, you're going to be taking some risk. You're hoping that Cody Bellinger has another solid year. He had a few down years before 2023. With JD Martinez getting up there in age, you're hoping that he has another solid year. Jorge Soler is up and down depending on the year. You can sign Jung-Ho Lee out of the international free agent market, but with all of these guys, you're going to be taking some risk. And of course, with all those names following Shohei Ohtani, they're not really comparable to the impact that Ohtani brings to the plate. That brings us to option number 2, which is via the trade market. But before we get into it, if you enjoy this type of content, make sure to like and subscribe. Juan Soto is a guy that every MLB team would want on their roster. Since entering the league in 2018 at the age of 19, Juan Soto has had an impact at the plate of at least 27% above the average league hitter, and aside from his 2022 year, which was considered a down year for Juan Soto, he's been at least 42% better than the average hitter over his 6-year career. And in 2023, he had an OPS plus of 158, meaning that his impact at the plate was 58% above the average hitter. If you look at his Baseball Savant page, it is littered in red. His batting run value is at 97. His average exit velocity is in the 96th percentile, barrel percentage 85th percentile, hard hit percentage 99th percentile. With chase rate, there's really no one better in the league than the Soto shuffling Juan Soto, who's in the 99th percentile in chase rate. His whiff and strikeout percentage are also solid, and he's in the 100th percentile in walk percentage. No one in baseball walks more than Juan Soto at an 18.6% walk rate. And what's wild is that from years 3 through 6 in his career, he's had a walk rate above his strikeout rate. Looking at his fielding run value, you could argue this could be your DH for 2024. So looking at his career numbers so far and the impact that he makes at the plate, of course, any team in baseball would want to have him. And if we're talking just value at the plate alone, he does have an Ohtani-esque ceiling, and he's been right in there in the MVP races in a few years. Now getting into his contract and what that does with his value, the reason why he was rumored at the trade deadline last year and why he's being talked about being moved by the Padres this offseason is because he only has 1 more year in a contract, which is through the 2024 season. The Padres are in a win-now mentality, but like the Mariners, the Padres also have some holes to fill. With the Mariners, I mentioned that we need 1 or 2 impact bats. With the Padres, your only set starting pitchers for next year are Joe Musgrove and Yu Darvish. Beyond that, you have to fill out the rest of your rotation. And this is where the Mariners and the Padres might be the perfect pair for a trade, like they have been in years past. And we know that Jerry Dipoto and AJ Preller have had a good working relationship in the past. In 2020, if you think back to that trade, the Mariners sent Austin Nola, Dan Altavilla, and 1 other reliever to the Padres in exchange for Andres Munoz, Taylor Trammell, Ty France, and Luis Torrens. In a separate trade, the Mariners acquired Matt Brash from the Padres. And then thinking back to December 2021, the Mariners made a trade with the Padres to acquire Adam Frazier. And so with that being said, what would it cost the Seattle Mariners to get 1 year of Juan Soto? I also have a second scenario in here that would send Juan Soto plus an additional player to the Mariners. So scenario 1 would be sending Bryce Miller straight up for Juan Soto. You might call me crazy for saying that Bryce Miller straight up for Juan Soto might get the job done. You can't look at it on just a 1-year snapshot. The Padres would be getting Bryce Miller for 5 to 6 years. The first 3 pre-arbitration years, you would be paying him just the league minimum. And then the final 3 years of club control, he would be in arbitration. Bryce Miller in his rookie year had a 1.14 whip, which if he qualified for innings would be top 15 in baseball, right next to Justin Verlander for walks plus hits divided by innings pitched. His walk rate was also in the 95th percentile. He had a walk rate of just 4.8%. And you may have seen the stats last year, but his four-seam fastball is being compared to some of the tops in the league, compared to Spencer Strider. His average fastball is at 95 miles an hour, and with the spin efficiency and spin rate of that four-seam fastball, it stays above barrels and it looks like it's coming in a lot hotter. Juan Soto, on the other hand, is set to make somewhere in the ballpark of $27 million in arbitration this year, which, unless the Padres were set to pay some of Juan Soto's contract, would drive down the value in the return that they would get via prospects. So if the Padres were to send Juan Soto and no cash to the Mariners, then I would say Bryce Miller is a pretty good get. But the Padres would likely pay some of Juan Soto's contract, and there's going to be other teams in the bidding war, which is going to drive up the value and the cost of what it'll take to get Juan Soto. Love it or hate it, I plugged these trades into the Trade Values website, and it looks like the Padres would get the upper hand in this trade. But if it would require the Mariners sending additional prospects to get Juan Soto, I don't think you go above the top 15 to 20 prospects in the Mariners system to add into that trade. And then if you start talking about adding in additional major league talent like a Jarred Kelenic to this trade, Jarred Kelenic is under contract for another 5 years. I've seen mock trades sending Bryce Miller and Jarred Kelenic to the Padres in exchange for just Juan Soto. Massive overpay in my opinion. I would not do that. 5 additional years of Jarred Kelenic plus 5 to 6 years of Bryce Miller for 1 year of any player is an overpay, complete overpay. At that point, you'd be creating other holes that you'd have to fill, which this front office has shown is not going to fill via free agency. Let's say the Padres do pay for some of Juan Soto's contract and they want additional pitching. Well, do you approach them and say, we'll give you Bryce Miller and Emerson Hancock in exchange for Juan Soto and some sort of prospect? You think of the Mariners rotation moving forward for the foreseeable future, you have Luis Castillo, George Kirby, Logan Gilbert, Robbie Ray will be coming back at some point after the All-Star break this year. Then you also have Brian Wu, and the Mariners are likely going to sign a free agent pitcher this offseason. You've built up your farm system and you have a solid surplus of starting pitching, and the Padres are needing that. The Padres get immediate impact in their starting rotation. Bryce Miller would be a number 3 for those guys. Scenario 2 would be if the Padres sent the Mariners Juan Soto and second baseman Ha-Seong Kim. Now this trade made a little more sense before they traded for Josh Rojas last year at the deadline and before they signed Luis Urias this year, but Luis Urias is not a lock to make the roster. And in this initial trade, I actually added Josh Rojas into the trade to send to the Padres. The past couple years, Ha-Seong Kim has had solid years. He's got a solid on-base percentage. In 2022, he had a .325 on-base percentage. Last year, a .351. His OPS plus has been 5 to 10% above league average, aside from that first year that he was in the league. He had 38 stolen bases last year, and he won a Gold Glove for the utility position. And Kim is under contract just through the 2025 season. In this scenario, it would be sending Juan Soto and Ha-Seong Kim to the Mariners in exchange for Bryce Miller, Josh Rojas, and one other major leaguer or a couple prospects from the Mariners. It's 1 year of Juan Soto and 2 years of Ha-Seong Kim in exchange for 6 years of Bryce Miller, 3 years of Josh Rojas, plus whichever other player or players you would add in from the Mariners. Jerry Dipoto has said that they want to roll with Josh Rojas at second base moving forward, and likely at some point next year we'll be seeing Ryan Bliss, probably around the midpoint to later in the year. He was also a part of that trade that sent Paul Sewald to the Diamondbacks. Josh Rojas, Dominic Canzone, and Ryan Bliss came back to the Mariners. But this is just another scenario to add on to that Padres trade that might make sense. So looking at the Mariners' current roster, this is really what the lineup would look like on opening day, assuming that Eugenio Suarez isn't traded this offseason, which there's been rumors on that as well. You would have JP Crawford leading off, Julio Rodriguez second, Eugenio Suarez third, Cal Raleigh 4th, Ty France 5th, Jarred Kelenic 6th, Dominic Canzone 7, some combination of Cade Marlowe or Zach DeLoach if they call him up, and then Josh Rojas batting 9. You add Juan Soto and Ha-Seong Kim to this lineup, and this is what it would look like for me. It would be JP Crawford leading off, Julio Rodriguez second, Juan Soto DHing batting third, Cal Raleigh batting cleanup, Eugenio Suarez batting 5th, Jarred Kelenic 6th, Dominic Canzone 7, Ty France 8, and then Ha-Seong Kim or Josh Rojas if the Kim trade doesn't happen, batting 9. No matter which scenario you look at, the Mariners front office has to be prepared to write a massive check to Juan Soto if they decide to trade for him. If you trade for Juan Soto, if you give up all of this massive future value, then you have to do what it takes to sign him to a long-term contract, especially if they're not going to do it for Shohei Ohtani. If you can add another superstar player like a Soto or an Ohtani right behind Julio in the lineup for the next 5 years, then this puts you in contention in the AL West against the Rangers who just won the title, against the Astros who are still strong, and against every other team in baseball. The Mariners had a top 5 pitching staff in baseball last year, and they'll continue to do so moving forward. Now it's time for the Mariners offense to step up and match what their pitching has done and will do in the future. So Mariners fans, Padres fans, baseball fans, let me know your thoughts in the comments below on what you think it would take to realistically get Juan Soto to the Mariners, or let me know if you have other players you think the Mariners should target in the trade market. Thank you for watching, and make sure to go check out my Mariners offseason preview right here.